Time now for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. Now, reactions, most of it negative, have been trailing a proposed legislation by the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, that will cover areas of property and the economy, according to him, to protect indigenes of the state. On Tuesday, Obasa was unanimously re-elected and Speaker of the House after the proclamation of the state's 10th Assembly by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, making it the third consecutive time that he would occupy the position. In his acceptance speech, the Speaker said that Lagos is Yoruba land and that laws passed by the Assembly will now be translated to Yoruba language. He also stated that the Assembly would ensure that the laws are made to protect the interest of indigenous people of Lagos and that lawmakers will reverse all that is reversible to protect the indigenes, the interest of the indigenes.
Lagos is a Yoruba land, as against assertion of some people that it is no more land. Therefore, part of our legislative agenda is to ensure that the translation of laws passed by this House to Yoruba language. We also aim at achieving our collective goals of creating a robust legislative framework that protects the interests of our people. Going forward in this way, we are going to employ all legislative instruments for the support of the indigenes of Lagos State.
You know, when this particular story hit the headlines on Tuesday, I was genuinely flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that following the bigotry and the tear in the veil when it comes to ethnicity, during the 2023 elections, we saw that push where a lot of non-indigenous, and I'm using that, that word very lightly, non-indigenous Lagosians were stopped from casting their votes because they were not originally from, because their claims that they're not originally from here. Now we've been able to get through that. We're here now. President Bola Tinubu has been inaugurated. He's the president. And I was thinking that the Lagos State House of Assembly would be focused on healing and trying to bring Lagosians together. However, this statement that has been put out by the Speaker, this is his third time in office. He's been re-elected and now tugging at the strings of what does that even mean? That they're going to change the laws, they're going to reverse certain laws, economic laws, and property laws for Yoruba people. My mother is a Yoruba. She's from Ogun State, Abeokuta. We've been living here for a long time. My father is from Delta State, Ishekiri. So does that mean I'm going to get one leg in, one leg out because I'm half Yoruba, half Ishekiri? What does that mean? And then when you look at the Constitution, it states there clearly that no Nigerian, while in Nigeria, can be discriminated on as a result of ethnicity or tribe or even, where you fall in the economic bracket. It is there in the Constitution. So I don't understand how somebody that understands the law, that is in charge of what is even the function of the legislature, Mr. Steve? Isn't it to protect the peace and the order, of Nigerians? Is this in itself protecting the peace and order of Nigerians? I'm very, very upset at this. I'm hoping that the other members of the House or House of Assembly do not take this particular bill lightly. And apart from that, it is important to note that Lagos is filled with different tribes and different ethnicities. There are people that have been here even longer than the head of the Lagos State House of Assembly, and they've all donated to the excellence of Lagos State. So it's very unfair to now come and say that, oh, this is Yoruba land. We've moved on from this. This is not the kind of laws or the kind of news that we should be hearing. There's so much happening. There's insecurity in the state. Right now, it's raining cats and dogs. If you go to major places in Lagos, we have flooding problems. Why are we not talking about legislation on climate control? Why are we not talking about legislation on insecurity? It's now they're saying that they want to translate the laws into Yoruba. How about we take those Yoruba translations back to the curriculum and teach the primary school students and secondary students their actual their languages? You see, I'm just thinking about this. When I saw this.
What are you upset about?
I'm upset at the fact that this ethnic veil that persons are trying to push, especially in Lagos State, is very unfair. There are people that Igbos, Hausas, Fulanis, whatever, that have been in Lagos for a very long time. Are you going to now say that because they are not Yoruba, you're going to take away their lands?
I think context is important.
Okay.
If you understand what I mean, so that we do not go ahead of the intentions of the Lagos State House of Assembly. There's no bill on the floor at the moment. The 10th Assembly for the Lagos State, has just come into being by the proclamation of the governor on Tuesday, and of course the Speaker, Mudashiru Obasa, who's also a lawyer, by the way, and who understands the letters of the law, I believe, is coming in for his third time out of, I think, the sixth term that he will be spending as a lawmaker. What is the context? He basically spoke to his colleagues in the House of Assembly, essentially to remind them of the direction that this 10th Assembly will go. And he was clear about the fact that Lagos State is a Yoruba state. And I do not see anything wrong in what he has said. It is a Yoruba state. Lagos State is in the southwest of Nigeria, one of the 6 states in the southwest of the Federation, the same way that you will say that the northwest has 7 states, northeast 6 states, southeast 5 states, and south-south 6 states. And all he has said is that Lagos cannot be said to be a no man's land, and some people are purporting to carry on because of politics. And that has to be very clear. Truly, the argument has always been there, right from Mobalaji Johnson, the first military governor of the state, to even Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, the first civilian governor of the state, about is Lagos a no man's land or not. And I do not have any problem with the leadership of the House of Assembly stating the fact as to the fact that Lagos is a Yoruba state. That does not, however, mean that it is not an evolving state. The same way that you will have, say, the City of London in the UK, or the City of New York, or California, or Florida, which are American states, which many of them are predominantly white, but then they are evolving. A new demography is emerging. So that is what I believe that Obasa was trying to affirm, so that people don't carry on with the negative and politically motivated narrative that Lagos is a no man's land. It isn't. It is a Yoruba state. And then he mentioned the point about what's it called? That the laws that will be passed in Lagos State House of Assembly will be translated into Yoruba. Again, I don't see any problem in that. It is a Yoruba state. Don't forget, Shaitan, that before now, Lagos State House of Assembly used to conduct its plenary every Thursday in Yoruba. But that was at a time that the majority, if not everybody in the house, were Yoruba people from Lagos and from the southwest of Nigeria. But at the time, politics evolved, and at the time there was, you had like up to 7, 8 non-Yoruba people in the house, and it became difficult for them to carry on with that every Thursday, conducting the plenary in Yoruba. If anybody in the north of Nigeria in northern states of Nigeria wants to conduct their plenary once a day in a week, in say Hausa, Fulani, or Igbo, or whatever, it's totally up to them. But then there's no bill. What we will therefore need to ask Obasa is that when plenary is in session and will progress, is this about still hurting from what happened during the general elections, or there's something to it? Law will always be tested. People will go to court. And he hasn't said that he will be anti-anybody. What he says is that he will protect, that the State House of Assembly will protect the interest of the Indigenes. I don't see that as bigotry. And in any case, you can, of course, debate who is an indigene. You can even ask if Obasa himself is an indigene of Lagos
Exactly.
State. Debate will be healthy, but then don't let us shut down the idea of reinforcing the fact that Lagos State is a Yoruba land. It is, and I believe that it will remain so, even though the demographic will continue to change. And of course, people will engage.
All right, then. We are going to go on a short break now, but when we come back, we'll still be talking more of what happened this week.
You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News, and we're still on to the week that was. Now, President Bola Tinubu has suspended Godwin Emefiele as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. A statement from the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, signed by Director of Information, Willie Bassi, said the suspension is with immediate effect. According to the statement, the President has directed Mr. Emefiele to transfer his responsibilities to the Deputy Governor Operations Directorate. In the meantime, Folashodu Adebisi Shonubi, the Deputy Governor, is expected to act as CBN Governor pending the conclusion of an investigation of Emefiele's office.
And a lot of people were shocked seeing what exactly had happened with the suspension, and especially when you look at what happened with the cashless policy, and just the fact that the entire process really puts Nigerians in a dire spot. What's the best way to put it? I think maybe let's start with you, and then we'll come back. Let me gather my
Your thoughts. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't think that we should start identifying the reasons now beyond what the statement from the Director of Press in the office of the SGF has said. And it has to do with the instruction from the President, Bola Tinubu, that his office is under investigation and that he will have to vacate the seat pending the outcome of the investigation. But when things like this happen, usually you will get a press statement saying that for these and these reasons, you'll be suspended. And one of the deputy governors of the CBN, in this instance, the Deputy Governor Operations, Shonubi, has been picked to act while he's out of that seat. We don't know for how long. We don't know if he will ever return after precisely 9 years and a few days on the seat. Don't forget that he came in 2014, June, under Goodluck Jonathan. So he will have worked with at least 3 presidents. The only other person who beats that record will be the gentleman who's late now, Alhaji Abdulkadir Ahmed, who was the CBN governor from 1982 to 1993, working with 4 different head of state, from Shagari to Buhari to Babangida and to Abacha, who eventually fired him and got him replaced in September of 1993, spending 11 years. Emefiele has done 9 years. We do not know where this is headed, but I don't think that many people will be shocked, given the body language of not just the president, but the people around him. About his perceived disposition to the emergence of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu first as the candidate of the party. Don't forget that there was a time that it looked like Emefiele was also interested in the same seat. And not only that, like you alluded to, the question of the redesign of the Naira, which the president spoke about openly during some of the campaigns, to say that, who could you be referring to, if not directly to the CBN governor or even to the president himself? But they had always shielded the president and went instead directly to attack the CBN governor and the cabal. The thinking is that it was probably part of the cabal. So I don't think that it will come as a surprise to anyone, given the fact that men around Tinubu do not seem to be comfortable with him. By law, he still got a year to go. But then this will not be the first time that, for want of a better word, that a sitting president will fire a CBN governor.
He's suspended.
I know, I'm just saying that, for want of a better word. Even though the CBN Act clearly stipulates, clearly how a CBN governor can be fired. You can't just willy-nilly, fire a CBN governor. If you recall, in 2014, when Lamido Sanusi, was also suspended, by Goodluck Jonathan. It was the special advisor media, Dr. Abati, then who issued a press statement saying clearly why he was suspended and attributing it to the report from the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria at that time, somewhat indicting the CBN governor. He never returned from that suspension, even though he still had a few more months to go for his first term. You know what has happened, of course, to Sanusi Lamido. Even after leaving, the CBN governor went to Kano to become the emir, was removed as the emir. Things happen, especially when it appears that you have stepped on toes. What is interesting, however, is how people will assess and analyze what President Tinubu has done with Emefiele, even though, as I said, it didn't come as a surprise. But if you note, as at the time that Goodluck Jonathan removed SLS, Lamido Sanusi, the gentleman who is now the chief of staff to the president, Femi Gbajabiamila, did say at that time, against what Jonathan did to Lamido Sanusi, that the president may have the right to ask the CBN governor to resign, but that he did not have the power to do so, because willy-nilly asking a CBN governor to leave by the president would mean that he will not have acted as the act demands, that 2/3 of the Senate must sign off on removing a CBN governor, and that it will affect checks and balances that the law intended and the autonomy of the CBN governor. Will that be the case this time around? Who will now remind Gbajabiamila, who is the chief of staff to the president, who has now asked the CBN governor to go on suspension? And it is likely that he may not return. But this is history repeating itself.
It's still the CBN. We're still pending the conclusion of the investigation of Emefiele's office. But just to quickly add to what you said, even during his inaugural speech, President Tinubu had said that the CBN's current percent interest rate at 18.5 was too high, and he said that it needed to be adjusted downwards to encourage investment, and described the interest rate at the time as anti-people and anti-business. And at a point, Emefiele himself had admitted to the challenges faced by bank customers following the limit on cash withdrawals, and said that the CBN itself would try to sustain the current monetary regime following a rise in headline inflation, which in itself posed significant threats to the economy. He also explained his decision at the time to raise the interest rates and, of course, try to rein in inflation. However, at this point, we just have to watch and see what happens with this investigation. Like you said when you were reading out, that at this point, the responsibility now falls to the deputy governor for operations. For operations, that is Fola Shodun Adebisi Shonubi. So I'm just going to see what happens with this. It's not been up to 24 hours. So
absolutely. I'm part of what the press statement said was that it's in line with the reforms that the president is trying to carry out, in terms of monetary policies and everything. And that he wants to, a lot of things will change.
He's definitely been busy, the president. His first 2 weeks has been very busy. As he ought to. What is still baffling to a number of people, especially people in the media, is the fact that 2 weeks after, he has yet to appoint a spokesperson. And given the strength and the might of his media team during the campaign, people are rather shocked that the president is unable to pick, as at this time, one person out of the lot, to be the special advisor on media, which is an important position. So what we have is that director of press, speaking on behalf of a particular ministry, and the director, of the press in the office of the SGF reading out things because of the absence
of
a media spokesperson. Yeah, but we'll watch and see.
We'll see how it goes.
Meanwhile, President Tinubu has called on Nigeria's security and intelligence agencies to exchange information and intelligence in order to be able to achieve greater impact in the course of their duties. The president said that the hoarding of such resources could hinder the fight against terrorism. He made the comments during a visit to the office of the National Security Advisor and the National Counter-Terrorism Center. State House correspondent Adesuwa Omorwan reports.
In his first engagement as president outside of the Aso Rock Villa, Bola Tinubu takes a tour of the new office of the National Security Advisor and facilities at the National Counter-Terrorism Center in Abuja. The facilities were inaugurated by former President Muhammadu Buhari to enhance the country's ability to address security challenges, particularly terrorism and violent extremism. During the tour, President Tinubu expresses his satisfaction with the available resources and emphasizes the importance of prioritizing security for the nation's economic prosperity and development.
Terrorism is not unique to Nigeria alone. It's across the world, and we have to fight it. We have to eliminate it completely. And we, as Nigerians, are looking for economic revival, prosperity, and development. Then we have to give priority to security. What I've seen here is a demonstration of intelligent effort to counter terrorism. It must be backed by knowledge.
And for a second time within a week, the president is charging security and intelligence agencies to collaborate and share information to achieve a common goal as he prioritizes the security of Nigerians.
You can't have a disharmony in an orchestra of this security plan. We must focus on one tunnel, coordinate, share the information, share the intelligence, coordinate, and work harder. Then you cannot hoard those information. You cannot hoard the intelligence to succeed. I'm glad Nigeria is on path to succeed. We will. I assure you, and we'll make it a priority, and that is why I'm here this morning.
The National Security Advisor expresses gratitude to the president for the visit.
This reinforces your commitment, your dedication, your inflexible rigidity to ensuring that the security misfortunes of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and by extension the sub-region are overcome within the shortest possible time. And we are compelled to note that all the agencies have started working assiduously towards realizing your objective.
Back at the presidential villa, political figures continue to make frequent visits, with some individuals, like the former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, making their second visit within the last 72 hours. The purpose of these meetings remain undisclosed to the public. Adesuwa Omorwan, Arise News.
All right, very interesting. First off, the fact that we're even having this conversation about our security agencies having to share intel, one would believe that it didn't have to take the president to tell them to do this. But here we are. Definitely, I agree. Security agencies must comply with the demands of coordination, with the demand of frequent consultations and also timely reports. Nigeria is such a big country, and we see these sub-elements of insecurity spread across the nation. There should be focus on terrorism. There should be a focus on the misfortunes in the maritime domain, focusing mainly on the issues of, theft, state security, and cybercrime. Just just this week, we saw Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, who appointed new military and intelligence chiefs in a major reshuffle. A lot of people were shocked at how swift and how diverse this shuffle was. And in expressing his willingness to do whatever was necessary to support the nation's security architecture, he asked, I mean, you can just see someone that really wants the security in his nation to work. And I personally believe that, that if we're still having that conversation now, where we're almost begging these, security agencies that please, share information, talk to each other, maybe what President Bola Tinubu needs to do is a major reshuffle, because when it comes to security, we cannot take any chances, and expressing his willingness to do whatever is necessary to support the nation's security architecture, when you look at hoarding such resources, can come off as being counterproductive in the fight against terrorism. So I'm definitely 100% sold in what President Bola Tinubu did say in that video.
Well said. I mean, there can be a time when we'll stop talking about the importance of sharing intel and making security top-notch. And of course, a president like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will have to keep emphasizing that, given the fact that he doesn't have a military background, unlike his predecessor. And you see what we experience even under a former general and a former head of state, in the area of insecurity, even in his own domain of Katsina State and the entire northern space. So President Tinubu knows what he's talking about when he says we just must get this right. I love his analogy
about the orchestra.
About the orchestra, when he says that you can't have a disharmony in an orchestra.
He does have a way of putting things
But
across.
of course you can. You sure can have a disharmony in an orchestra, which is why he is stepping forward like the conductor of an orchestra to say that I will not have the cello man go off key, when the entire orchestra, the wind, and the brass section of the orchestra are giving us, harmonious, melodious tunes. So he's saying that, basically, sending a message to say that if you are the cello player, or you are a trumpeter, or you are a violinist, and you are going off key, we can't accept this harmony in this orchestra. And you just have to get it right, or we kick you out. I think that's a subtle but loaded message to Mongono, the National Security Advisor, who was appointed by Buhari. But of course, a lot of people expect that his replacement will be on the way. And we have had names being mentioned, Ribadu being mentioned, Dambazau, being mentioned. It's a matter of time. He will have to rely on his own men. When you say reshuffle and bring other people, he's not going to bring generals from outside of Nigeria. It will be generals who themselves have reported to the army chiefs at this time. But what may be the needed change will be that if Asiwaju is able to identify those that he trusts, those who will betray him, those who have the interest of the nation at heart, to be at the helm of the security apparatus, maybe things will change, for the better. Because a lot is going on within the military apparatus that is not tidy, that is not healthy for the security of the nation. He will have to be the commander-in-chief and ensure that that orchestra is harmonious.
And so we can get some beautiful music coming out of
Absolutely.
Nigeria for once.
Absolutely. All right, moving on, the presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, has broken his silence on the issue of subsidy removal. 1 week after President Bola Tinubu made the much criticized announcement, Obi made the comments while relating with judicial correspondents at the Court of Appeal venue of the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. He maintained that the removal is in the best interest of Nigerians owing to the fact that it has been an organized crime. He, however, criticized the manner in which it was removed, stating that rather than go through a forceful removal, he would have provided various relieving policies to cushion the obvious adverse effects.
The difference between removing your tooth by applying anesthesia, which will alleviate your pain, and just pulling it out. The difference is that I believe it should be removed with conditions, and that condition has to be applied. If I was involved, I would have shown in empirical statistical data how much we are going to save, where we are going to apply it, the gains for the people, so they can, just like I said all throughout my campaign, that I'm going to govern the people by being open, showing them empirically verifiable facts on how the country can be better, and everybody can follow it. The reason why Nigerians are agitating about everything here is that when people say, let's go and suffer, let's go and sacrifice, they don't see the effect of the sacrifice at the end. But if you're going to do it, then do it in an organized manner where the people can see a verifiable plan. And that's it. I did a lot of similar things while I was governing Anambra State, stopping this to do this. But each one I did, I showed the people in a verifiable manner where we're going to land. Governance should not be supply driven, it should be demand driven. You govern with the people. Let the people know what you're doing and explain to them in a clear terms.
In the meantime, the Nigeria Labour Congress this week suspended its planned nationwide strike over the scrapping of fuel subsidy by the federal government. That followed talks between government officials and organized labor and representatives in Abuja. Arise State House correspondent Adesoa Omoron reports.
Representatives of the government and the Nigeria Labour Congress arrived at the presidential villa. It's the third in a series of meetings since President Bola Tinubu announced the removal of subsidy on petrol in his inaugural speech on May 29. This meeting comes after a previous deadlock with the NLC, who had declared an indefinite strike starting on Wednesday this week. It also comes a day after government had met with the Trade Union Congress in the absence of the NLC. After hours of deliberations, a recess was taken to consult with the National Executive Council of the NLC. However, the arrival of members of the Trade Union Congress, led by its president, signaled the continuation of the marathon meeting. After over 6 hours, Speaker of the House of Representatives discloses the outcome of the meeting in a 7-point resolution to include the establishment of a joint committee to review proposals for wage increase, as well as the review of the World Bank Finance Cash Transfer Scheme.
As you are aware, the $800 million loan did not really capture the low-income government workers. So basically, we'll be talking about how to include them in that scheme. 3, the federal government, the TUC, and the NLC to revive the CNG conversion program earlier agreed with labor centers in 2021 and work out detailed implementation and timing. 4, the labor centers and the federal government to review issues hindering effective delivery in the education sector and propose solutions for implementation. Centers and the federal government to review and establish the framework for completion of the rehabilitation of the nation's refineries. 6, the federal government is to provide a framework for the maintenance of roads and expansion of rail networks across the country. All other demands submitted by the TUC, and that's the 7th, all other demands submitted by the TUC to the federal government will be assessed by the joint committee. Consequently, ladies and gentlemen, the parties agreed as follows. 1, the NLC is to suspend the notice of strike forthwith to enable further consultations. 2, the TUC and the NLC to continue the ongoing engagements with the federal government and secure closure on the resolutions above. And finally, the labor centers and the federal government to meet on June 19, 2023, to agree on an implementation framework.
On his part, the NLC president explains their shift in demanding a reversal of the petrol price hike and calling off the planned strike.
You can see that nothing is yet in concrete terms. So at a joint date, we'll go into more specifics to make sure this knotty issue is resolved. We have come with a more concrete reality and framework and alternative. The CNG alternative is better than the price even before the increment.
In the midst of the meeting, the National Industrial Court issued a restraining order against the organized labor from embarking on any form of strike, a ruling that the NLC president claimed to be unaware of. Adesuwa Omoran, Arise News.
I'm definitely one for the adage that Peter Obi used when trying to describe how he would have handled, the removal of the fuel subsidy. When you're trying to remove a tooth, you won't just forcefully.
It was very apt.
Yes, pull it out.
Very
you have
apt.
to put something that would, break the fall or make it at least a little bit better on Nigerians.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at what the NLC themselves suspending their strike, I for one was very scared that we're going to go down that path, because if a strike like that happens, it doesn't necessarily make things better. Even though I understand why the NLC is pushing for an increase in salaries, because the workers definitely need something to cushion the effect of petrol now being about 490, 500 naira in certain places. Yeah. And the fact that they've been able to have this meeting with with Gbajabiamila and come to a 7-point resolution about the 200,000 they were asking for was not necessarily realistic, seeing that the 30,000 that was approved back in 2019, we still had about 15 states. But what this has done is we're beginning to see state governors look at very interesting, solutions, creative solutions, thinking outside the box. For example, the Kwara State government and even Edo State government looking at 3-day work weeks. I never thought that I would see the day that 3-day work weeks will be allowed, and people will be allowed to work from home, which I believe even after what happened with COVID is something that we need to look at. You don't have to be on the road in traffic Monday to Friday. It has been proven that less work days actually increases productivity. But let's see how far this resolution can go, and hopefully the effects of a fuel subsidy, like even the president said yesterday, he said eventually the prices will come down.
Well, we just have to wait and see if the prices will come down. Which item in Nigeria has ever gone up, and come down in a manner that you can be certain that things will come out. But like you, I agree with Peter Obi using his adage and the analogy of the tooth, removal of the tooth. I think that's very apt. You can't just pull something off because you needed to. Given the fact that even you yourself in 2012 there were you itemized clearly the things that needed to be done before President Jonathan could remove subsidy. The same logic should apply now to say that what have you done? President Buhari didn't do anything meaningful preparatory to the removal of the subsidy. All he did was to push that to the time that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will resume office, even though the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act, stipulates clearly that he ought to have removed it, by 2021, which he failed to do. And shifted it to Asiwaju Tinubu. Asiwaju Tinubu's excuse cannot be just that, this is something that the law says I must do. Questions must be asked. We must look at it holistically, even though everybody is almost on the same page that subsidies must go. Mm-hmm. But then in subsidies going, can Nigeria afford, most Nigerians, can they afford the effect of the removal of subsidy? Did we even need to get to the point that we are paying subsidy ab initio if we had done the right things with our refineries and with the crude swap arrangement with those who are giving us fuel abroad? What people are saying is that let the discussions be holistic, and don't let us take a knee-jerk reaction and then just say that we have removed it, it's gone. Because we can't come to a stage where we will say that workers, if they have been pushed to the wall, do not have the right to protest. All over the world, if there are issues, workers must protest to make sure that if they say that this is unbearable.
Interestingly enough, even the NUJ had released the statement that we're going to join, and I was wondering, what does that mean for us?
It's just a suspension, by the way. By the 19th, when they will return, we will know clearly. And don't say that Labour leadership does not know what they are talking about. They do. They may have issues within themselves that they are dealing with, but we must look at all those things holistically. The question of subsidy itself. Because if we are losing so much, what about other areas of the economy where we are even losing much more
Definitely.
than this one? So I think it's important to be holistic about it.